officially start the session now. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this special session of the Design Pod. Seeing such a diverse group of design enthusiasts and experts gathered here is truly inspiring. Today, we will dive deep into the future of human machine interaction and design in the age of AI. It's our privilege today to be joined by Don Norman, a leading thinker in the field of design. His foundational work on user centered design has deeply influenced how we consider the human aspects of technology. As we navigate the evolving landscape of human machine relations, Don's insight will undoubtedly illuminate our discussions. I am also excited to introduce our School of Design at IIT Jodhpur with a pioneering master's program in XR design, which is extended reality design, and a vibrant PhD program. We are home to over 50 students and 5 dedicated researchers, supported by 7 permanent faculty members. We are continually and numerous visiting experts from prestigious IITs and the industry. We are continually pushing the frontiers of design education to meet the emerging challenges and opportunities presented by AI and advancing technologies. I encourage everyone to take part in the discussion and ask questions. I would now like to invite Bhavika from MDes first year to start the discussion on the topic impact of AI on design.
Thank you, Nishchay. Hello, sir. We are very grateful to have you here and we are very excited to have this discussion. We have lots of questions and lots of thoughts, and we'd love to hear your perspectives and have a discussion around it. So, I'd just like to start the discussion with understanding how AI is currently integrated in the products, digital products that we use. So, we see it everywhere, like be it any tool that we use, presentation, PDF, social media, or like anything, any product that you can imagine. And although that it is a very great tool and it serves a very meaningful purpose, sometimes it can just be a very flashy feature overlaying on any product. So like for example, like in WhatsApp you have Meta AI chat box where you can ask anything and talk about anything, but that does that truly serve the purpose of building better relationships with the people that I'm currently connected to, which was its primarily purpose, right? So and sometimes people, users and people don't also understand what this feature is, how is it serving me, and how can I benefit from it. So I just wanted to understand, like, how can we approach design thinking and design process into integrating AI in our digital products?
That's a very, that's not one question. That's many questions. That could be the entire discussion. But let me say that I think you are wrong in describing why the AI systems were developed. I believe that they were mostly developed simply because they could, because the technical people, the engineers, the scientists who were working in the field said, oh, look what we can do. And so they kept doing it more and more and more. And a lot of technology development happens that way, that engineers build what they can build. They don't think very much about how it's going to be used, and they know almost nothing about people. For example, let me talk about STEM education, which is very popular around the world, especially in India and the United States. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Notice there's nothing about people, nothing about history, nothing about culture, nothing about ethics, nothing about everyday life. And so if we simply focus on the technology, we end up with crap. And that's what has happened here. If you take a look at what has happened, you know, some of this started in my laboratory. Many years ago in the 1980s, we started a cognitive science department, and we invited a bunch of new people who had just received their PhD, and we got people from around the world, about 5 of them, to come and join us. And I remember very well, at the early meeting when we were explaining to these new people who had arrived what we were working on so they could join us. And I gave a little lecture about a field that was called perceptrons. And one of these people in the audience said, no, I was wrong. And he went to the board and he explained some new work that was going on in Europe. Well, that person, his name is Jeffrey Hinton, just got the Nobel Prize for his work in developing neural networks. And he recently, he had his own company for a while, then Google bought it. And he worked for Google, and he just recently quit Google. And he said he's quitting Google because he doesn't like the way that these developments are happening. He doesn't think they're going necessarily to do good for people. And he wanted to be able to speak freely. Now, he made a big point that Google was not stopping him, but he simply felt uncomfortable in perhaps criticizing Google while he was working for them. And so Jeffrey is one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. He was a tremendous amount of fun and delight and new creative thoughts. So the AI systems that we have today, remember what they do. When you give it a prompt, notice that the response almost always starts with rewording your prompt. That's actually how it works, because what it does is it's simply it's a pattern matching system that has collected basically everything that could find from the internet, and it whether it's art, music, people talking, or text. And so it simply finds the pattern that matches most closely your prompt. And then it says, well, let me see what happened in the event that I just found. And so it predicts the next word that would happen, or the next pixel if it's doing a drawing. And then, okay, now I have one more word. So now it goes and tries to find the closest match to that, to everything you've said plus that word. And then it finds what is most likely to be the next word. So it is not thinking. It has no understanding, doesn't know what it's doing. And quite often, because if you do the prompts well, that restricts the sort of words it's going to find as the most likely. But that's why the longer you talk to it, the more it goes wild. People say it hallucinates. No, that's not true, because it's always hallucinating. That's how it works. Okay, but is it useful? Yes, it's extremely useful, and many people find it very valuable, and it's going to change a lot of what we do in this world. I, for example, have stopped using search, because when I search, what am I searching for? I'm usually trying to figure out how to describe something so that I will find the website that might have the answer. Now I simply explain the problem I have and explain the answer I'm looking for, and it comes out and tells me. And it does a really good job. I mean, I just tried it the other day. I just typed my name in. And usually what the websites do is they just give me lots of places that are referred to me. But because I typed this into the OpenAI's new GPT, it gave me a very nice biography and description, and I found it to be accurate and useful. Not useful for me, but it would be useful for other people. So many people have asked me, especially young people just graduating, they're saying, oh my goodness, I'm going to graduate in user experience and in design and human-computer interaction, and these systems look like they will take over. Why? What can I do? I won't be able to find a job. And my answer is no, no, no. Don't fight it. Join it. So what we should do is all of you should become expert in using all of these tools. And you will find places where they are very valuable and they can do the job better than maybe you can. And you'll find them where they are not useful, or you'll find them where they maybe are really good starting points. Because oftentimes when we're starting a new project, whether I'm writing something or drawing a picture or trying to design something, I don't know how to begin. So if I describe my problem in great detail, the more detail you describe it, the better, and explain who you are so that it knows how to answer you. You can say, I'm just a beginner in this field. Please talk to me in elementary terms. Or you can say, I'm an expert and I'm trying to apply it. It will give different answers. What it does is then provides you with something. And it doesn't matter whether it's any good or not, because once it provides you with something, it's a starting point, and you will find it gets you started much quicker than any other way. Because when somebody gives you something that's wrong, it's easy to see that what's wrong, and you can correct it and modify it. And you're much further ahead because you started off with something. The other thing is, it's going to replace a lot of stuff that we can do. So let's learn to give that to it. Let it do the basic coding. Let it do the basic drawing. Let it do the basic sketching. Let it do the basic description. That frees us up to do what good designers or good engineers should be doing, thinking hard about the problem and about the approaches to the problem and what we're trying to accomplish. And also, because we understand people, trying to make sure this is really appropriate for people. And so that's why I think, so a lot of the technology, what we've learned in school will no longer be necessary because the systems will give it to us. And I think a lot of education has to change, because today, especially in India, what you are often have to do in class is the professor tells you, that gives you a lecture, and your job in the exam is to repeat back what the professor told you. And you get exam questions where you have to be able to get the correct answer. Well, we don't need to do that anymore. And just repeating back what you've heard isn't very useful. What's useful is knowing what to do with it. And in the university, we have to work all by ourselves. But in the real world, we don't work by ourselves. We work with teams. And so we ought to learn to work better with teams. And design education, for example, I recommend it should always be based on problems. In fact, I think all education should be based on problems, because today what we do is we teach this specialized subject. You teach mathematics, but why are we learning the mathematics? And then we teach some engineering topic, and why are we learning that? And some of that mathematics is useful here. That's interesting. And then we learn we learn chemistry, we learn something else, but we learn them separately. If instead we are given a problem to solve, it will show us, we will have to know all these different topics, but if those topics are taught as we are studying and working on the problem, we begin to see how all these things fit together. And that multidisciplinary work is how we actually get things done. If you want to be an academic, yes, be a specialist and write about some very tiny little detail in your field. That's important to know. It's good for the world to know that. But if you want to build things and create things, you have to bring together the work of many, many different people, many different fields. But AI is wonderful at doing that. AI doesn't know any boundaries. And so it actually helps you put it together. And I think here we can start to use AI in a positive way. The other thing that's happening is we are about to move to active agents, where the AI will do things for us. I have to arrange a trip to India, and I want to visit these 3 different schools and different cities across the western part of India, the eastern part, the northern part, the southern part. How can I manage the schedule? It can develop a schedule for me, including the airline reservations, and it could even make the reservations. And it more and more is going to be active, and it'll be an agent that acts in our behalf, and we will interact with it by talking, or showing it a drawing, or a sketch, or a flowchart. And so the way we interact, what we've taught in human-computer interaction, how to design interaction with machines, that will go away. We won't have menus and commands and so on. We'll just have conversations. It's like when you want to work with somebody else, you have to explain to them what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. Well, that's what interaction is like in the future. Working with our machines, we'll be conversing with them and saying, no, that's not what I mean. Let me show you an example, etc. And it's going to be a very exciting period. Now, who should be leading this? I personally think the people in the design field and in human-computer interaction especially should be leading it. Because what we do is that we are the interaction between the technology and the people who are using it and society. And we work closely, the engineers and the others who are building it, we can't do what they do, but they can't do what we do. But the combination will be very powerful. But that means we also have to take the lead. Too much of what we do in design is we do what we're told to do. Companies hire us, but they never put us in positions of power. And we have to move to positions of power in companies. How do you get to a position of power? Well, lots of engineers become the head of a company. How do they do that? They learn to see what's important for the company. In design, we teach people, you must understand who you are designing for. Well, one of the people you're designing for are the people you work for. So it means you must understand their language, and their language is money, spreadsheets, budgets, schedule, sales, products. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to make progress in a company and be in a place where you can help develop the new AI tools, you have to show them, oh, here's an idea that we think would be really powerful that your company could develop, and here's how you should do it. It's important when you work with a company not to tell people what they're doing wrong. Don't tell the executives that, ooh, you are destroying the environment when you mine to get the materials, or we're destroying cultures because we're making our digital products addictive. No, don't tell them what's wrong, because executives don't want to know what's wrong. They need to know, but what they want you to do is tell them what the answer is. You have to come to them with a solution. Now, it has to be a full solution. You can't say, well, the circular economy means that we must reuse things and we must make them easy to repair and they must be more sensitive to this, that, and the other. No, that's not a good answer, because if a company makes its money by selling products, the circular economy means you should sell less products. So you have to explain to the company how they might stay in business and in fact be very successful, because there are other ways of making money and helping society. So that's a really long answer, because it's not even an answer. What I'm doing is I'm taking your question and I'm putting it in a larger context. So now you can dive more deeply into what I said. By the way, I'd have to warn you, when I'm asked a question, I often give very long answers. But if it's too long, don't hesitate to say, stop it, shut up. Let us ask him more questions.
No, Don, I
We were
think
just
this is good. We love hearing you. So love hearing your thoughts. And I'll just kind of echo some of the thoughts that you put down, like you said about search and AI. And there is this interesting quote by Wolfram of Wolfram Alpha. And he said, back about 15 years ago, he said, when you search something on Google is not really a search engine, it doesn't give you the result. It's like a dog. You ask for something and it gets you the newspaper, but it's not really giving you what you asked for. And with coming of AI, we finally, I guess we have that. So that I find is quite interesting. And what you said is AI is just the starting point. It's just maybe 5 years ago we had Wikipedia. It was like the starting point of any search. We would go there. Now maybe AI is what is the new Wikipedia of the new age. We start with this and then we see how and where it goes. Also, I think and this question is asked to me, and you have answered part of it. By engineers, they ask, so now because AI is there, what is the need for design? And very few people, especially engineers and other people, they understand that asking the right question is actually critical. Understanding what is the right question to ask is very important. And this is not, AI is not going to help us with that. We have to find, see the world, engage with the world, and then find the right questions to ask and right problems to solve. That is one. And then again, what you said, uh, understanding people and understanding contexts, developing empathy for a certain situation, for certain people, stakeholders. That is something again that is we have to engage with the world, find out, and then maybe we can, if we are able to put all of this into AI, then maybe it will give us some results. Sure, but this initial discovery of the question, initial discovery of the context, understanding people, that is something that we will need to, we will need to do the hard work on that. And lastly, what you said about AI agents, I think that's a great opportunity for designers also to step in. Like everything else, technologists will create something, and if they have created AI agents, how to make them good agents, how to make them relevant for us. I think this is an opportunity for designers also to step in and create something meaningful.
I want to emphasize what you just said. The question, do we need designers anymore? I think it's just the opposite. We will now need designers even more because today what most industry thinks about designers is what? We make it look attractive. We make we make beautiful objects. And in the computer world, yeah, we're called in to try to make it at least usable, slightly usable. But very few companies make that the major focus. It's something that's usually added afterwards. I mean, even Apple, which once made this its usable, its most important focus, making things easy to use. You never had to look at an instruction manual. That isn't Apple today. Apple today fell under under the danger of a brilliant industrial designer who made everything beautiful, but made it difficult to use because take a look at an iPad or an iPhone. You have to learn and memorize gestures. And what the big breakthrough in understanding how to use computers came when we got away from command language, because command language, you had to memorize commands. Well, today, what we had menus, which you could say, oh, yes, this is what I need. And if you couldn't remember which command, you could look at the menus and say, oh, yeah, this one, let me try it. Today, we've replaced it with gestures, which are basically a command language for which there are no hints. You have to memorize it. And it's crazy. But the world is about to change in big ways. And I think that designers should step up and be the leaders of this change. And it isn't that the people will make these AI systems and then we have to figure out the best way to use it. No. Why don't we get hired by the AI companies so that we help devise those systems from the very beginning so that they are good for society and good for people and good for getting jobs done in collaboration with people, because the power of the tool is great, but this has been true of all technology. Look, let's take a look at the calculator. When the calculator first came out, people in the school systems were horrified and they refused to let students use the calculator. You had to learn arithmetic.
Sure.
Oh yeah, you do. But today it's just the opposite, isn't it? When you take an exam in mathematics, you're supposed to bring your calculator into the classroom, into the examination. And modern calculators don't just do arithmetic, they also do algebra. They can even solve calculus problems because solving the problem is mechanical. Doing arithmetic is mechanical. That's not mathematics. Mathematics is thinking about the problem and knowing how to describe it in mathematical terms. Then, of course, let the calculator solve it for you. And then when you have a solution, you can say, oh, that isn't what I wanted. That's not right. And you have to rephrase it. And so you become a more powerful thinker that way. And that's how it will be in design. And so we should take the leadership, but it only will happen if we embrace it and learn how to use it and work with companies and show companies that we can do things in different ways that will be more valuable.
I think it's definitely forcing us to think and understand what really is, like, for example, you gave us the example of calculator. Similarly, maybe good memory, you would say, we would say, oh, he's very intelligent. This person is very intelligent because the person remembers so much. But today, there's no reason to remember anything. You always have information on the tap. You can always get information. So intelligence has kind of moved a step further. So similarly, with these AI tools coming, I think we are being challenged, and I think it's a good challenge, and we should accept the challenge. So,
Yes.
Nitin, can we?
Yeah, sure. I would like to invite Gomindra from second year MDes for the discussion on topic future of human machine interaction. Bhavika, yeah, you can ask
I
any
just
follow-up
have
question.
one question about what you said. So, we kind of talked about how AI is gonna, we don't need to remember things and everything. But there's slightly one thing that I feel I want to ask is like lots of times this happens when I'm traveling with my friends, or we use Google Maps to go anywhere. And one time it just took us to a place which it was not a place only, and we were like, why are we just blindly following Google Maps and not even seeing the world around? And my dad and everyone, they kind of remember streets and everything. So I was just thinking, is it in longer run is kind of also hindering our creativity and our intelligence, which is negative? So if that is true, then how can we make AI to also empower us creatively and kind of creates that balance?
Well, the answer is yeah. uh, you raise good points because in general, all the any new technology is good at doing something, and usually bad at doing lots of things. And it's restricted in what it's capable of doing. But because it's so good at doing what it does, it means that we also lose the skills ourselves to do it. And this has been true for a long time. When when books first started to come out, when writing was there, the old philosophers would complain about books. You can't learn from books because you can't discuss with them, you can't argue with them. And they thought it was important that you have a teacher you could argue with. Well, interestingly, today's books you'll be able to argue with. You can have and a lot of the books will come out. In fact, I'm already experimenting with my own books. I have put my latest book, Design for a Better World, and also Design for Everyday Things. I put it into an AI system, and I'm trying to develop it into an intelligent conversationalist, so people can ask questions and it will answer them. Now, but let's take a look at spelling correctors when we type, which makes things corrects our spelling errors. And so we don't have to learn how to spell anymore. Except that sometimes it corrects it to the wrong word. And so that, sure, I don't have to memorize all the strange spelling ways and the accents and the way you have to. It's very difficult to learn the accents if you're learning a second language, the accent marks. But we have to be very careful. We can't trust what it does because it puts the wrong word in there. It spells it correctly, but it completely changes the meaning. And the same with almost any skill you can take. Let's take automatic driving. Today, the cars are very good. My car is very good. It controls how fast it's going, how far away it is from other cars. It keeps to the proper lane. Which is something that I seldom see in other countries. Like I was recently in Manila and also in Thailand, and for that matter in India. And the notion of keeping to the same lane is very foreign to these countries, but it makes it more dangerous to drive. So the new cars will actually follow the laws, and that will actually make driving more safe, except that quite often it gets confused and does weird things. So even though it's automatic and takes care of 90% of driving, if you are not attending all the time, you might get into real trouble. Now, getting back to what I can give another example, which is telephone numbers. I don't remember any telephone numbers anymore. It's all on my computer. I don't even know my wife's telephone number. I have to look it up. And it's because I don't dial the telephone number. I just push a button and it dials her name and it calls her. Now, AI is going to be the same way. It's going to look like it's replacing everything we do, but that actually means that it will be wrong many times. And there's no way it can be right all the time, because we may have something in mind and it doesn't really know. It can't read our mind. And so it doesn't really know what we want. It may do something completely wrong because it just misunderstood our instructions. And so we have to be so one thing we have to learn is how to correct things, how to check it. Don't trust it. But by the way, I point out that's true even of me writing by hand. I have often, I type quickly and I make many errors in the typing, and sometimes I send the email first and then later I read it and I say, oh, what happened? Or another example is today. I carefully put this event in my calendar, made sure that I would be there and be attending. Then I put the event for 1 hour too soon. And so I showed up an hour early. Now, fortunately,
and AI didn't help us there.
it was my error because I went back and looked at all the information. Yeah, I didn't do it right. But fortunately, it was the right kind of error, because it's better to show up too early. I just have to wait then. If I would have shown up an hour late, we couldn't have had this meeting. But again, you're correct about your concern. And I think it will cause many difficulties because people get lazy. If something is working, the more powerful something is, and the more it takes over your job, as it gets, when it's 50% of your job, that's useful, but you're watching it. When it's 80%, when it's 90% or 95%, if you keep watching it, well, it never needs your help, and so you stop. But that extra 5% happens, and so every so often it would do something very bad, and which can either be embarrassing or can be actually it can be harmful. I don't have a solution to that particular problem. But look, we are entering a new era of automation. And we've had technology for many, many years that have always has disrupted people's lives in many ways. Overall, it has tended to be good, but there were many people who lost their jobs and had difficulties. And this is going to be, though, the same but different, because in the past, all the technologies had to do with physical skills, being able to travel more quickly or do a job more quickly or more efficiently. And today it's replacing mental capabilities, human capabilities. But I think that we should take the lessons of the past and learn how to use these systems and also how to develop them to make our lives better.
Yeah, I think with each age, with changing of times, what we find enjoyable would also change. So today, what we find enjoyable, tomorrow we might not, and this will keep changing. So I think while at one point in time, remembering a map or remembering a phone number was possibly enjoyable, and you could recall that, but tomorrow, maybe something else we'll find enjoyable. And if we go back to the old world, we won't find it enjoyable anymore, because now then we will think, oh, this is grunt work, we don't want to do it. So I'm sure our definitions of what we enjoy, how we enjoy, would also keep changing.
But the other thing is, these systems sometimes, when they go wrong, there are two components to it. One of them is it can cause difficulty for the person, but
Sure.
it's also important for designers to experiment all the time and to watch, to discover where it goes wrong, and then to try to go back and try to understand the reasoning so we can eliminate that. Because as a user, it can be embarrassing, or as I said, even dangerous if the system goes wrong. But as a designer, that's actually the most important things you can find, because that shows you some area that needs more work.
Sure. Absolutely.
Right. Should we move on to the next discussion topic?
Yes, right.
I would like to invite Komal for the discussion.
Good morning, Don, sir. Good evening, everyone. I want to change the course of discussion a little bit. So, the digital landscape is changing at a very fast pace. The devices that we use, that we wear are smartwatches. Even the bottle that we drink in, the water bottles are now smart water bottles with a lot of features in it. In this context, we have progressed from laptops to smartphones to now the future of human-machine interaction look like?
Well, be careful of the word smart. The smart is an advertising word. These systems are not smart. So I just bought a new watch, and it's very nice, but it keeps annoying me because it keeps telling me about things I don't want to know. And it keeps telling me every so often I should stand up and walk around. And it even tells me how many steps I should take. And I can stop it. I'm trying in the middle of some work. Don't do that. Or it buzzes or it says things out loud in the middle of a meeting. No. It's not smart. Somebody has put into it the rules that make it sound smart, because sometimes it's very useful. But again, that's a designer's problem. So these have the capability of predicting things that will happen in our lives, and it's very simple. Some of the prediction is very simple because if it has access to your email and calendar, it can know what you're supposed to do for the rest of the day. And it can even bring up information to remind you not only that there's a meeting at some time, but here are the topics that are going to be discussed. So that's very useful, but it has to be able to present that in a way that is not annoying, and not to be presented when you're doing something else that's important. That's the wrong time to tell me. Actually, when I do things, the best time to tell me is like 2 or 3 minutes before, if I'm on a conference like this, 2 or 3 minutes before the conference starts. Then quickly give me a review of what we're going to talk about and what the purpose of the talk is. And but then it becomes useful. But this is a design issue, that these aren't smart. They really are not. But when you start understanding human behavior, you begin to understand what kind of information might be useful to somebody, and more important, when will it be useful? I mean, how many times do you log into a new, website or something, and as you're starting to use it, suddenly there's a big, it pops up a questionnaire and wants to know how well you liked it. And I say, go away. I don't know how well I've liked it. I'm trying to do something. And when I'm all finished, yeah, then you might want to ask me, but not while I'm busy using it. And a lot of stuff is simply, it's not smart. Again. It's people who are doing very simple triggers.
Yeah, I think, just continuing on the discussion, again, getting the right insight to create something useful and smart is the difficult part. Like, for example, the way my wife uses the address book. And when she's putting down the name of a person, with the name of the person, she'll put the whole context. Who's the spouse, who's the partner, who are the children. So the moment a phone call comes, she knows, okay, these are the people that are associated with this person. So when she's talking, she might say, how's your husband? How are these children? And the other person thinks, we met like 1 year ago and we still remember the names, because the names are part of the the name that called in. So the smartness comes from the way she uses the address book, the way she puts in the name. Now, no address book designer, product designer will create such a feature, but the way we use it, this is very interesting. And if we are able to somehow glean these insights and create good products, smart products, I think maybe there's an opportunity. But we have, the human creativity of how we use certain things is immense.
That's a very good example. So, and let me expand it, because I do the same thing. So almost every computer system we use for email also has a way of keeping people's names and addresses and so on. And I use that to write all the details of emails that I've got from people. In fact, this happened to me just this morning. I got an email from a friend in Korea, South Korea. I used to teach at KAIST, the university in South Korea, asking me to review a promotion for a faculty member. And so I wrote a nice, polite answer saying, I'm sorry, but I cannot do that anymore. I'm just too busy doing other things. And I haven't kept track in any event with, what people are doing there. And so he wrote back a nice letter, but what I also did is I looked him up in my contact list, and I wrote back and I said, the last time we talked was 2011. That was a long time ago. So your children, that I named his children, are now adults, and what are they doing in their life? And give my regards to your wife. But I knew the name of his wife, and I knew the name of his children, and so. But that's nice, and they like that, and I like that. I remind myself of, because he was an old friend when I taught in Korea. He was very friendly. He was just a beginning professor then, and now he's professor and head of the department, and I congratulated him on that. But it takes me many hours to keep this up to date, because each one I have to go and figure out from the emails which part I want to save, and put it together in a way that's useful. And as you say, the contact list doesn't make it easy for me to do that. And if I want to have a person, and maybe the person's spouse or husband or wife or children, I want to have them all together, or even people from the same company. And I can't. They're separate, and I have to repeat the information. But why can't AI do that for me? It will be able to, and I bet you there's somebody working on that now as a possible product. Because if you take a look at the startups,
right,
a lot of the AI startups are not developing better AI systems. They're using the system to see how they can improve your life. And so I'm more excited by all these startups, which are doing things that are very powerful. And you don't need the big AI. You don't need the large language models. Small language models turn out to be far better and more efficient. And if, for example, if the language model only knows things I have written or things that I have done, it's not going to come off and give me some nonsense, because everything is about, it isn't looking at the whole world, it's looking at relevant things. So I think there's real opportunities here. So that's another, again, for a lot of you who'd like to start a company or work in a company, don't look at the AI system and see how you can improve them. Look at people's behavior and think about places where you can really simplify and help them, and groups especially. These are really good at working with groups. And then ask yourself how to transform the existing AI systems into something that will be valuable for that group of people.
true.
Right. Anirudh, do
Hello, Don. So I have a question regarding HCI. So as everything is evolving, and HCI is also evolving with time. So, and we are moving from mouse to touch sensors, and then we are moving from touch sensors to, depth and gesture controls. And then there is a Neuralink coming, which is set to work on brain thought, that you can control the computer with your brain thought. So, what is the future of design in general when you can just interact with the computer by the thought, by thought, or as the landscape of SCI is evolving? What is the future of design and designers in next 1 or 2 decades?
Yep, that's the question. And the answer is, this is a group with students, yes, mostly. So it's not up to it's not up to me, and it's not up to your faculty. That's your job, the student's job, because there are new technologies and new methods coming out all the time. But the fact that human behavior is still pretty much the same. And so it's our job to try to understand how to make use of these new systems. And a lot of them are going to be very useful. For example, I have been using Apple's new Vision Pro system. They don't call it virtual reality or extended reality. They call it spatial computing, because when you put on their helmet, you look out and you see the world, but you're not actually seeing the world. What they're showing you is they have video cameras that are looking at the world, and they display it in the goggles, but they have such high quality precision screens, you actually think you're seeing the world directly. Well, that's useful because what it does is it makes the interaction between your motion and what you're trying to do on the screen accurate. So for example, suppose you're doing a medical operation, you're operating on a patient, and you need to know some of the details about blood pressure, and you need to know about things, but you need them placed though on, near the relevant part of the body or near the relevant tool that you're about to use. And with traditional augmented reality, it's very difficult to calibrate the system so that the words on the screen or the vision or diagrams on the screen are exactly correspond to what you see in the world. But when what you see in the world is also a picture, a video, it makes it very easy. So people can do operations that require extreme precision through these goggles, because this changes the way I interact with the world. And that's going to change a lot of medicine. And it's going to make available information. Right now, if you watch a surgeon, and I've watched them, they're cutting into the body, but then they have to lift their head up and look at the screens all around them to make sure to see the medical information about the body. Well, nowadays, they won't have to. They'll see it directly in front of them on top of the patient. And moreover, if there's some special area where they have to be very careful in doing the operation, well, what the picture can automatically do is sort of enlarge that part so you can control your actions better. So that's one direction. You talked about a few others as well. A lot of the work that Apple is now doing is through gesture. When I want to select something, I simply look at it, and then I take my fingers and go boom, like that. And because it knows exactly where my eye is looked and it's exactly calibrated, it can then do an appropriate operation on the location. And as for neural reading the mind, I'm not as optimistic about that. I think but we are doing wonderful things. But right now, it's mostly for people who have lost complete control of the body. And so this allows people who could not move their limbs to move them, or who could not speak to speak. But it's slow and difficult because the human body has developed over tens of thousands of years the best mind-body interaction. So the ability to control our fingers and the ability to do things like that and do it in great skills is part of the very complex nervous system that we have. And someday, yes, we may be possible to do that. And someday our thoughts may be possibly to be read through electrodes, but we are far away from that. But again, quite often the advances in technology are very surprising. In many cases, they're not. In many cases, they're predictable, but some of them, and this one, may be very surprising. So I may be wrong. But again, I would say that's your job. By you, I mean not you personally, but all people of your age, to be involved. Because if you're working in the medical area, if you're working in this area or that area, then you can be help to develop that in a way that's useful. Now, reading minds scares people because what we think is often not what we want other people to know about. But so you have to also therefore worry a lot about the ethics and the controls and the privacy issues.
I think Sunil sir has something to say.
Sunil, we can't hear you.
Hi, Don. Yeah, I was about to talk about the ethical issue only. So I come from this design plus humanities background. So actually, I was about, it is so scary to listen to all this, right? Like, almost it scares you as a being, as a human being. That even mind can work. I was asking you that what is the responsibility of a designer regarding the society, that the misuse of all these things, like our data, our our contacts, and how well it reads, and and how industries are using this data, all this information to sell their products, and interpret our interpretations, and then politics is all the things, right? Our voting, everything is like almost like, what about the will and free will question here? Like someone is using us. So is there anything designers can do in this way, or we are only good with our innovations and this whole exercise?
That's a very important question. Designers lack ethical principles. That is, I'm not talking about the individual people. I'm talking about the field of design. Almost every technical field, electrical engineering, computer science, almost every engineering discipline, if you go to the society that represents that part of engineering, almost every society has a set of important ethical principles that they must follow. We don't have that in design. And I think we need them because the kinds of issues we're facing are very complex, and we have actually harmed cultures and children and societies. And we're also harming the environment, and we're harming all other living things. And those are ethical issues. But ethics is extremely complex because different cultures have different views. I once tried to set up an ethical committee to examine these issues, and unfortunately, the committee ended up saying they couldn't handle it. They said it just should be obvious. You just do things that you know are right. And I say no, because different cultures have different ideas about what is right and what is wrong, and we have to learn how to establish cultural rules that also allow for different cultures to have their own value systems. Every religion has ethical rules. Now, by coincidence, about a week ago, I got I'll back off a little bit. I have started a charity called the Don Norman Design Awards and Summit. And we reward early career people who are doing things for the benefit of society. And we offer prizes. And we also offer recognition to schools that are teaching these people to do things for the benefit of society. And so we are looking primarily at the United Nations list of 16 critical issues for society. And you have to work on one of those, and you have to have enough evidence to show that you're making a difference. And we got entries last year from 26 different countries. And we had a very successful, I have 18 judges scattered around the world, including from India. In fact, my board of directors, this is a nonprofit organization, and it has a board of 5 members, and 3 of them are from India. They're American citizens now, but they were all born and educated in India. My CEO was educated at IIT, in fact, in India. And one of the schools that we gave an award to is in Noida, in Uttar Pradesh. It's called the Design Village. It's a very unusual design school. And they just so we recognize their accomplishment in training people. And they just wrote to me and said they feel that we need a set of ethics, of ethical principles. And can I help them? Can DNDA, our charity, can we help them? And we thought that's very, very important. So what I did is I asked one of my advisors who lives in Finland, but he's a very distinguished designer, if he would be willing to head a group and work with the Design Village to develop ethical standards. And he immediately replied that yes, he had already been talking about doing this with people in the World Design Organization. And so one of the things on my list to do today or tomorrow is to write back to my friends in the Design Village and get this going. And what we should really do is not just let this group, but we should ask this group to maybe call for volunteers to help them and get a larger group of people. Because as I said, design is also, ethics depend a lot upon the culture that you grew up in, your religion, but also what part of the world and your local community. And so we need a diverse group of people with different backgrounds to help develop this. So your question is important. I don't have an answer yet, but I just wanted to let you know that it is something we are just beginning to actively engage in.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, that response, because we all are, designer, as I'm also an artist. So we actually flow with our creativity and, our own innovation, and we indulge in our own journey, and we forget that, it affects so many people and society around us. So it is same with technology and any even atomic bomb also, like, all these things are on lab, it is so good, but the implications are so way more powerful actually.
Yes, but
So
let me
just
make
wanted
one
to
more
know
point.
thought on that. Yeah.
One more point.
Yes.
A major problem, I think, is that designers have no power. Most designers work in companies or even in the university. The design department of a university is never the leading department. It's always in the middle someplace, or maybe it's embedded in the engineering school or someplace. And the people in the university don't think of asking the design group to help develop the university curriculum. The company does not think of asking the designers to help determine what products they should do or what services they should offer. And I think that we must change that. But how to change that? It's up to us to change it. We can't tell the company they should promote more of us to positions of responsibility. That's not how it works. You have to be ready. You have to demonstrate to the company or to the university that you can actually make contributions at the right level, which means your education has to change. That we train people in design or in engineering, but in order to move up in a company or even in the university, you have to demonstrate you understand how the organization works. And you have to understand the principles. You have to stop being a designer or an engineer and start being now an executive, if you will. And you have to think about what is important for the company or for the university. And yes, with proper ethics and proper responsibility, etc. But that means you have to learn about finance. Finance, money, by the way, is always very important. And it's not that we all are trying to get rich. It's that simply money is the universal way. It's a very clever invention. invented over many, many centuries. It's a way of being able to bring in resources and to allow people to work on resources, because money allows people to buy food and to live in a house and to have children and to live well. And so we need to pay people money in order to get the job done. And so we have to worry about the costs. And so, and I'll tell you how important that is. I have been on many boards of companies, and I at first thought, oh, wonderful, I can help this company do new, better products and help them design what they're doing. No, the board meeting was almost entirely based on spreadsheets and financial analyses. And I began to realize how important that was, because without understanding the expense of everything you wish to do, you couldn't do anything. And almost any time you wanted to do anything new, no matter how important or valuable that everybody agreed it was, you couldn't do it unless you figured out where you would get the money to do it. And if it's something new, that might mean you have to take money away from some other project in order to do this new project. And so I think, though, that if you want to have a say in a company or a university, any organization, we must have more designers who get promoted to positions of authority. In companies, that means the chief design officer or even chief executive officer. In universities, it means you become a department chair, but there you have to, you don't have much power, actually. You have to become a dean or a provost or the chancellor or head of the university. Although the chancellor or head of a university, you know what their job is? Their job is to get money. So they often don't run the university because they're spending all of their time with the public trying to raise more money. But you have to learn about that. You have to learn how these organizations work if you want to make a positive difference.
As we have already crossed the time, I wanted to ask you, can we touch upon one topic of humanity-centered design, if you allow?
Please.
I would like to invite Ritvik to discuss on the topic of humanity-centered design.
Hi, Don. Great to have this engaging talk. And again, and towards the humanity-centered design. So we as users are not using just the product, we're using it, we are engaging with an ecosystem and engaging with the human and non-human stakeholders both. And so the humanity-centered design approach facilitators. So how do we create that transition, one in our own minds as designers and as students who are going to become designers, to embrace this added complexity, and then to showcase the business and financial side of the spectrum, corporate sector or in universities, to how being one is, as you said, to gain knowledge of those fields and then empower ourselves to be able to sit in that table and engage with them in their own language, and then uh, uh, give the value that design would. As per the humanity centered approach to how to engage them with the ecology of the environment, with sustainability, with equity, how do we incorporate that as we move forward?
Yes. I could have spent the whole hour or longer on these set of issues. I consider them very important. That for those, let me just give a background quickly, which is also partially an answer. So this book is a book you may know, and it teaches what I call human-centered design. And I've used it for many, many years. The original book was 37 years ago, and this version was printed 12 years ago. And I now tell you that it's wrong. So human-centered design is wrong. But if you ask me what's wrong about it, nothing. The principles of human-centered design are correct, and I still teach them, and I still believe in them. What's wrong is what's not in the principles. And what's not in the principles is concern about the environment, concern about the lives of all living things, concern about how we destroy cultures and how we do digital products that are addictive in negative ways. And so there are basically 4 simple principles for human-centered design. And I say that for humanity-centered design, there are 5 principles. The first 4 are the same as the 4 principles here, except expanded. That we must consider the entire system, as opposed to, I'm trying to design something and I want to think about how the person might use it and how it helps them in their job and how they will understand it. Well, okay, but you should also think about what you've done to the environment to build to make the physical product they are using, and maybe they should be using some other physical product, or maybe the product should be designed in a different way, because even all digital products have to end up on a physical device. So that's one aspect. You have to actually think much more broadly, and that's difficult, by the way. It's easy to think about everything, but knowing how to incorporate it, you can't think about everything in the world, even though almost everything in the world will actually matter in the end. You have to be able to figure out the critical issues that you can address. And that also means you have to be in the right position in an organization so you can change how we are designing and building things. Well, the 5th principle is a different principle. It's a principle that's been well known, but I'm saying it's essential to new design. It's called collaborative design, co-design, design for societies. So when you are going into a new village, well, and I can take India as an example. And I've just recently spent 3 weeks in India at a wide variety of locations, including hospitals where there weren't enough physicians to go around, there were not enough facilities, and school systems where people were learning by memorization. And I didn't feel that, even though they were trying to do advanced education, I thought it was still education of the 17th century, 1700s, 1800s. And at the same time, India, by the way, has some of the most advanced hospitals that I've seen in the world and advanced educational systems. IIT graduates are all over the world now, leading companies all around the world. The issue is that when we design for people, for societies, it has to come from the people. If we simply go in as designers and say, oh, I understand the problem you have here, and here's a solution that will take care of your problem, clean health or clean water, better health or clean water or better food or better education, better transportation, electrical, better use of communications. If you as a designer go in and see the issues and design a solution and give it to them, it will fail. It has to come from the people themselves. It has to fit their lifestyle, what their capabilities are. Too often we design things in nice, clean, advanced laboratories, and it works fine when we test it. But when you go to the village, they don't have people who can repair it. They don't have people who can even maintain it. They may not have electrical power or air conditioning or clean water that is necessary to use these systems. So it has to come from them. And that means that we don't design for people. We let the design be by the people, and we act as advisors to help them do it. Because quite often, if they're trying to do a sewer system, say, or sanitation or health or something, it's bigger than the village. It requires government assistance. And that requires knowing how to work with the politics of the area, the local political issues. So all of these are difficult. So this book, which you may have seen, Design for a Better World, which is meaningful, sustainable, and humanity-centered, talks about this. But And so I say that instead of HCD for human-centered design, we must talk about HCD plus. It's humanity-centered design, and I'd love to have that around the world, have happen in the world, and that's what my nonprofit is about causing this to occur around the world. I'd love to have your university be part of this. It's not easy. If you say it should be done by the community, well, that's nice. And you go to the community and you try to figure out what they understand the problem, but when it comes to the solutions, they may have 20 different ideas. And so your job is to help them come to a useful solution. But the problem will be is that they will all fight among themselves about what is best. And it's going to be very difficult to get agreement. And when you finally get agreement, guess what? A month later or 2 months later, it'll be new people from the community and they will disagree again. And so that's the way life is in the community. But we have to learn to work with them. It's because if we present something for people, it's what we are being as a colonialist. That's what Great Britain did to India. It came to India and said, oh, we don't like the way you are governing India, so we will govern India for you. Isn't that nice of us? No, it wasn't. And, Britain imposed the way it lived upon India. And that was not a good thing for anybody. And so we should be careful that we are not colonialists imposing our ideas upon other communities. Okay, I see that other people are raising their hands. And in terms of time, I'm going to keep going as long as you are. It depends on what available time you have.
I think works for all of us, but just let us know whenever you feel like we have crossed.
I think we can take one or two questions and then we can bring it to a close. I'm sure we can continue the discussion. We'd love to have the discussion, and we can definitely continue this discussion another day. Because for many of the guests here, it would be very late. So let's bring it to a close after a couple of questions.
Yes, the problem is very early in California is very late because you are exactly 12 and a half hours different.
Yes. Okay, so I think Daniel, you had raised your hand.
Yeah. Hello, Don. So as you could not emphasize more on, am I audible? Yeah.
Yes.
So more on the humanity-centered design, how the human-centered design has been expanded towards humanity-centered design. So my question is, how can we as designers advocate for and emphasize this importance of humanity-centered design, especially in a business landscape where stakeholders prioritize immediate commercial returns and human-centered feedback more than this? So what are the strategies that we could put forward towards the stakeholders and other companies we suggest them to shift the focus from short-term user satisfaction to addressing like a broader and longer-term societal and environmental impacts through design?
That's the question. The question. So that if you look at what I argue for in this book, it requires changing many things. One of them is the economic systems that we live by. That is, it's called capitalism, but I'm not arguing so much about capitalism. I'm arguing about the heavy emphasis upon profits and upon short-term gains rather than long-term. And we have to change the way capitalism works. We have to change the economic structure of the world so that companies should be rewarded not for their profits, but for improving the quality of life. Now, a company needs to make a profit. It needs to be able to pay its workers. It needs to be able to develop new ideas. So it needs to bring in money. There's nothing the matter with that. But today it has reached very bad levels where the people who run the company end up being very, very wealthy, billionaires, billions. And the people who work in the company end up with much less money, and some people barely have enough money to live. We have to change that economics. And that's a component of humanity-centered design, changing the economics. And that requires changing the political system as well. Because the political systems in part around the world are governed by the people with the money. Because money is a way that people can incentivize others and also use the media to try to argue for their point of view. But what in democratic countries, what's very important is the voice of people, because that's the voting power. So if people can band together and insist on changing the way we are doing things and make that happen through their votes, that's the way to make this happen. Now, it turns out that more and more people are doing this. When I said the United Nations had 16 societal issues that should be addressed, they actually have 17. But number 17 is different. Number 17, the other ones are about health and education and transportation and so on. But 17 is that these problems are so large that we must all band together in order to solve them. And that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I give talks all around the world to groups just like this one, trying to get more and more people together to have these common views and to change the way the world works. And once again, it means we need more of our own people with these beliefs in positions of power. Now, actually, in a lot of the democracies of the world, we have people in the legislatures who believe this, but they're almost always in weak positions. They're not in positions of power. They're the minorities or the green groups. Even in the United States, where I thought we were moving in the right direction, we have just changed. We have a new president coming in who looks like he will listen mainly to the very, very large companies. And that would be wrong or bad or step back. But I don't know yet because it's too early to see what will happen. So this question, which I'm asked a lot, of course, is how do we make a difference? Well, no individual can make a difference. But the individuals, you can make a difference by grouping, by forming groups, by forming local groups, by working within companies, because for a company to establish itself as a humanity-centered company can be actually good news for the company. It means they can go into different kinds of businesses and bring and get different kinds of resources. And usually the people of the world like those kinds of companies. There are a couple in the United States that advertise how they do this, and they get a lot of respect, and they do a very good business. We need to do more of that in the world. Now, it's interesting because in India, I've met with a number of the billionaires of India who made a tremendous amount of money in their technology companies, but who are now returning it to the community. And often, as they return it to the community, they are allowing the community to do humanity-centered design. So there is one university I'm also an advisor to in, where is it located? Called Flame University. And it's in
That's in Pune.
Pune. Yes, thank you. And Flame is, it's being supported by the people who are very wealthy from industry, but they're doing exactly what I'm talking about. And so, and there are a number of universities, especially the newer universities in India, that are doing this. But your department is new. And so you maybe can make a change too, because a new department doesn't have to worry about all the old ideas and the established ways of doing it, but you can actually modify the curriculum and maybe It's important that you don't work just with yourself, because all these requires understanding a broader issue of life. As I've said before, you have to understand politics and finance and most of all, human behavior, not just the technology.
Yes, absolutely. I think, the trick is to catch them young. So we have to start at the school level. Maybe even if we can have design education, value of design, if we have these subjects at a school level, I think maybe it'll have a very, very long-term lasting impact.
Well, you know where it works? People who enter engineering school, they often have wonderful ideas and they really are committed to making a better world. But as soon as they get into the engineering school, whoop, they're suddenly doing mathematics. And they think everything in engineering ends up being applied mathematics. And they don't have any time anymore to think. In fact, most people join engineering because they want to build things. But mostly in school, you're just doing applied mathematics. And you seldom get to build things. And when you bring design into the engineering school, they love it. And it actually changes the way they take their engineering courses in a better way, because the engineering department may not, they say, why should we waste our time? We don't have enough time to teach everything we need to teach them as it is. Well, but once they've taken the design course, they go back to engineering and they understand better how they can use it in a positive way. And every university has this problem. Every professor wants everybody to know exactly what they do. And you don't remember at the end of the course, you don't remember what you were taught. But AI here is a solution, because AI allows people to, when I need to know something about technology, I can get a quick education because AI puts it together for me in a powerful way. And I think it's going to change education. But again, we have to be able to, what we need to do in the university is it's a liberal education that we must have, which means putting the things together, putting the engineering disciplines and the science disciplines and the humanity disciplines together so we understand how they relate to one another. And I think design is in a wonderful position to be maybe the people that organize this, because designers don't know anything. That is, we don't know any field in any detail. And that's our power. That's our strength, because that allows us to work with other people. What we have are methods of being able to create things that actually work well for society and people. And I'd love to bring that into all engineering schools. And that's happening slowly. Engineers are starting to bring more and more design into their practice in schools all across the world.
Yeah, I love that. We know little, but we have the methods. So I think it's the way of doing things which is key.
That's what design has. It's a way of thinking.
Right. So Kashish, very quickly, your question, very briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Don, for this wonderful introduction. It's been amazing listening to you. So, just keeping my question very brief. Whenever we talk about humanity-centric design, and it's a huge challenge, in especially diminishing art forms or cultures in India, that how do you bridge the gap with the financial viability of it? For example, there are certain art forms such as Dogra, which is basically metal casting, and you make toys, which was
No, stop. Take a breath. Now,
uh,
speak slowly.
yeah. Yeah, so
Thank you.
yeah, so what I wanted to ask was, when we talk about how do we bridge this gap between humanity-centered design and the financial viability of things, like especially like there are so many art forms, like there is Dokra in West Bengal and Chhattisgarh, which is a metal casting way of making toys, which lasted for centuries before the age of technology in the recent few decades. And or even in architecture, because that's the background I hold, wherein there are so many styles such as Katkuni, which hold a lot of value. The entire community has lasted based on it culturally for centuries at stretch, but right now it's not able to hold itself together.
because we are so if we want to sort of work along with such communities, empower them, as your fifth principle, how do we do that using humanity centered design without losing the touch of financial viability and being in tandem with the economic aspect of it?
Yes, those are the questions that you have to answer. We have to figure out the proper answers to that. But there isn't a universal answer. It depends a lot upon the details of the situation. If you take architecture, for example, the climate crisis is here and is actually going to help architecture in this sense, because if you look at the history of architecture in India and in many of the Mid-Eastern companies, where companies are countries around the equator, for example, where it's extremely hot. The history is that people used to build buildings before we had air conditioning, before we had electricity even, but they devised them with thick walls to insulate from the heat. They didn't put windows all over the place where the sun could come in. And when they had windows, they made sure they were in shade in the summer. But maybe if you have a ledge in front of the window, in summer, the sun is higher up, and so this causes the window to be in shade. And in winter, the sun is lower down, and so the sun can go through the window and help warm the building. And you can make what's called a wind tower. That is, you let the hot air come into the bottom of the building, and you have an open, basically a chimney in the middle of the building, that where air goes up in the air. You obviously know about it. You're shaking your head. And it automatically ventilates the entire building. And there are lots of things that can be done and redone. But what happened is the problem is the West took over. And the West means actually the technological companies of the world. Because it doesn't mean just the countries in the West. Australia is a Western country. Lots of parts of India are Western. And Western architecture, it said, oh, we have such powerful HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We can build the building any way we like, and we can have it funny shapes, and we can have it all glass, and we can have windows in all places, because the air conditioning will keep it cool in the summer, and the heating will keep it warm in the winter, and it didn't matter how much energy was used. That has to go. We have to change that. And that's not going to work as the temperature changes. And so, again, there's a lot of emphasis now on trying to build things better. A lot of architects are starting to change their ways and bring back some of the old methods that we used. You can take the old methods and now, using modern techniques and modern building materials, even do a better job, but using the same philosophies. But I think this will be true of almost every area, that we will find that, well, if we can reduce the amount of energy that we need, that saves us a lot of money that we can use to build the important components of the building, or to run the company in a way that's better for the world. So quite often, the things that we must do to understand the environment can actually end up costing us less money, not more. But again, I'm coming back to it. They are difficult, because we have to change established ways of doing things. And so the hope really for the future is all the people who are now graduating from universities, who are going to take jobs, and it will take another 5 or 10 years for the people who get jobs now to reach a position of authority where they can start changing things. And maybe we can make that slightly faster, because maybe the problems of climate change will require us to do this more quickly.
Definitely.
I think as we have already, should we officially end it?
Yeah, we can bring it to a
If-
close, and we can continue the discussion another another time.
Okay. So thank you
Sure.
for inviting me.
I
And
would, I would, yeah, I would like to take a moment to reflect today. Your contributions have truly enhanced our understanding of the topics. I extend my deepest gratitude to Don Norman for his invaluable insights.
thank you. And
We have
thank
a,
you for the wonderful
Questions.
questions. And thank you for
we have a
Thank you so
slightly
much once again.
patchy connection, but yeah, thank you so much, Don. It was really good having you here, and I humanity-centered design principles into our curriculum and into whatever we are teaching and whatever we are doing.
Well, then, as you get graduates who are going off and doing the work, please apply to the DNDA, because we would like to list you on the website as doing excellent work in humanity-centered design. That's not a contest, by the way. The contest is for the early career people. But when it comes to educational institutions, anyone that shows they are doing this well gets listed.
Definitely, definitely. We'll do that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, Ron.
So
Good having you
evening
here.
to you, and good morning. It's
Yes,
me.
good day to you.
Bye.
Good day. Bye bye.